see Granny. This is Granny. Yes. Yeah, hi, Granny. She's a little dazed and confused. You want to sit on the bed? Here you go. Make yourself a seat. Oh, legs demands an encore. Could you be good? I don't know if you can be good if I put you up there. Sometimes you get all up in Granny's business. Alright. We have snorkeling dogs on the bed. I apologize. Hello everyone. How are you? It's Echo from the Knitted Bean, and I am going to do a little bit different of an episode today. This is going to be episode 27.5, and it's going to be knitting plans is what we're going to call it. Not necessarily summer or winter knitting plans, just garment quantities that are in my stash and what I'm thinking of doing with them. I know this is a kind of video that I particularly enjoy watching, and I'm hoping that you will too. So, as I said, my name is Echo. I am the host of the Knitted Bean podcast. I live in Montana with my husband and my 2 Boston Terriers. It's generally a nitty, nerdy, sweary, and sometimes fanficky podcast. The Knitted Bean is a nitty, nerdy, and sometimes sweary podcast, sometimes with an ending of media or whatever I'm watching, reading, etc. Sometimes fan fiction. This is going to be totally different though. Today, we're just going to kind of go through my stash and see what I'm looking forward to knitting. We might go over my Make 9 a little bit and where I'm at on that and where I'm going on that. And we'll see if anything else crops up. So, buckle in, grab something to drink, and let's take off and enjoy ourselves. I do have something to drink. I have some tea in a very me mug, which you've all seen before. This is by Crafty Cat Mugs, and I do love her. She's on Etsy. For starters, I am wearing my completed Rocket Tee by Tanis Lavely or Tanis Fiber Arts. And if you are looking for more information on that, go check out either my Instagram page at The Knitted Bean on Instagram. You can also find me as The Knitted Bean on Ravelry, or watch for my episode next week, which will be a full podcast, and this will be covered in detail there. So, how shall we start this off? I have some things in my notebook here. Not that you would be able to read my handwriting, because it's super duper impressive, you guys. Did I have to stay back and write on the big chalkboard with the dotted lines in 3rd grade? Yes, I did. Did it do me any good? No, it clearly didn't. So, this has kind of a running list of my sweater quantities in it. And then both on Ravelry and in here, I kind of have an idea of what I'm going to make with them. So, let's get started. Okay, the first thing on my list is from the Wool Barrow. Is this upside down? Nope. Okay. This is Irish Donegal tweed from the Wool Barrow in Ireland. They are on Etsy. This is a single ply, rust colored with multicolored tweed in it, and it is a fingering weight. I have 400 grams of this at 190 meters per 50 grams. So about little over 1,600 yards of this. 1,600 yards is enough to get me easily a t-shirt or a full sweater with like 3/4 length sleeves that's fairly fitted, or a shorter sweater with long sleeves, or somewhere in there. You get the idea. Basically, the only thing that I can't do with 1,600 yards is a tunic length full sleeve down to the wrist sweater, which is not a style that I wear very often. So I do tend to go for between 1,600 and 1,800 yards. A lot of times when I buy an unknown sweater quantity, would I be safer to get 1,800 to 2,000? Sure, but finances are finances. So this is a 100% merino Donegal tweed. I have wanted a rust colored sweater for a really long time. So what I have as far as thoughts for this is there's a designer who has a sweater that's really cool. It is a long sleeve or short sleeve, full length pattern with some really interesting raglan increases. They're not your standard 1x1 standard raglan increases. Hang on, I've got a frog here. Let's try that again. They're not your standard raglan increases where it's every other row. They are aiming for something a little more tailored, and it has some lace detailing in the cuffs and things like that that I really like. So I have only done a single test knit before, but I did sign up for the email list to be notified when that test knit comes out, and if the gauge and whatnot matches up for this, I very well might try to get in on that. If it doesn't match up for this, it's possible that I'll look at something else in my stash and see if it's still something that I can do. So that's like, I don't want to start anything until I find out about that. The other option for this that I really like is the Oh Not Again by Anna Johanna, and I will put a picture up here. It's a little bit of a drop shoulder construction, but not dramatically, with a like full to 3/4. I would probably do a 3/4 length sleeve with a long cuff and buttons, which I really like. I think that's a cute detail. And then at the hemline, you have your ribbing that comes up into some really cute cables, and then the entire rest of the sweater is purl side out. So I haven't looked deeply into it. I'm gonna assume it's probably knit wrong side out, and that's fine. I don't care. Even if it's not, I really don't mind purling that much. So that's my kind of like second option. Absolute last option is I could totally make another pavement sweater out of this, you guys. I will put a picture of my current pavement sweater up here. This yarn is a little bit thinner, and that's knit at a pretty thin gauge. So I'm a little at how that would work. I would definitely need to swatch it up and see. This yarn also blooms a lot, so I would really need a gauge swatch for that. So that is garment number 1. Some kind of not tunic length, but full length sweater with, I would really love for like 3/4 length sleeves. I would also totally go for elbow length sleeves, would be really nice too. I always push my sleeves up. Okay, garment number 2. You guys might recognize this as the yarn that I dyed myself. This is 100% Fickschaft from Germany, from the, I think it's the Rare Breed, I can't remember now. I don't have a tag on hand, but it's like a Rare Breed conservatory type place. I already have one wound up. I really would love to get on swatching on this. This might be the next garment that I cast on. I'm really torn. This is totally not the weather for this. This is non-superwash, sport weight, but you know what? I wanted to do this since I finished dyeing it. So what I'm gonna do with this is the Winter Garden sweater by Hooked Mountain Handmade. I will pop a picture up here. I'm going to do some modification. So I had talked before about how just wonderfully sticky this yarn is. It's the perfect yarn for steeking. Steeking is a skill that I really want to try out. I've never done it before, and it's definitely within my like skill range. And I think I can steek this sweater into a cardigan. This could be a little itchy. It doesn't feel itchy to me, but it's not soft. Like, it's soft for rustic, quote unquote, wool, but it's not merino. I mean, it's farm yarn, and it's not even from a like, what I guess what you would consider a wool bearing breed, right? But I just think that it would make a really warm cardigan. And I only have one cardigan right now, which is not the warmest. It's alpaca, but it's also fingering weight. It's pretty thin. So what I would like to do is make the Hook Mountain Handmade Winter Garden sweater. Maybe take out that center cable that sticks up in the middle on the bottom, replace that with steek stitches, and then cut that. I didn't grab everything, hang on. Cut that, and then I have from, I think the English translation of it is Jan the Little Craftsman, and I'm not gonna try for the Dutch because I'm not Dutch, you guys, and I don't have it in me. I would butcher it and you'd all laugh at me. So I have these super bright green. I don't know what you would call them, but they're like cotton ribbing or linen ribbing for tacking down steeks. I also have, if I don't want to go with the greens because they're not like a dead match to that particular olive green, then I also have a couple of like beige gray ones, which would look even cooler. So tack down the steek, use this, which my dogs are now supremely interested in. And then I got that in Amsterdam. And then I have some really neat buttons from Amsterdam as well. I have, depending on what route I want to go. If I want to go contrasting, I have some really cool dark purple ones. And I don't remember how many of these I got. I think I got 5 of these. So it would depend on how spaced out I was going to go if I could do the green ones. But to be honest with you, I really like the purple. And I think I got 10 of the purple. So, 2, 3, or at least 6. So, yeah, I could do a cool cardigan with lots of like trimming and stuff from my trip to Amsterdam. So I would like to do that with my hand-dyed yarn. Smells good. My one caveat to the cardigan is if I can make it long enough, I'd really like to put pockets in the front, which is going to be like an extra add-on to that. And that's going to take some finagling because I've never knit like inset pockets before. I'm sure I could figure it out. It can't be that hard, right? You just knit, and then cast off for that area. And then keep knitting below that, and then maybe like pick up and knit a cuff, something like that. Okay, this next garment, you guys have seen this sweater quantity, I think fairly recently. I will put a picture up here. I would like to do the Susurrus by Jorge Locatelli. It's out of Pom Pom magazine from a couple of springs ago. And I did already purchase the digital magazine. I have all the yarn for it. It's ready to go. I just need to cast it on. I'm going to do it entirely in Farmer's Daughters fibers, which is going to be awesome. I have Legends of the Little People, which is like a green, yellow, beige mohair. And this is some really good lighting right now, so that is very accurate. And I have a skein of horse belly to do my ribbings in. And I have 3 gloriously bright skeins of I can't ever say this word, which is a herb for the rest of it. The horse belly really pulls on the darker beiges that are in the alpaca Surrey. I don't get along that well with mohair, as you guys know. Typically I only knit it in a hat. Yes, I'm aware I'm wearing a mohair sweater right now. We'll get about that. We'll talk about that. But this is a lot less itchy to me, so that is why I decided to switch that up. And I can't wait to try it. This is another strong contender for next major garment cast on. I wanted to knit this for like a year and a half, and it has taken me that long to collect the yarn for it because it is not a cheap sweater. In my size, it requires a lot of yarns. It has you use 3 different kinds of yarn, and then of course, you know, you need X yardage of each one. I'll probably only use 2.5 out of each of these colors, but I still have to buy 3 skeins. Farmer's Daughter is definitely one of my favorite dyers. They are semi-local to me, and I really vibe with their color style, and I really like their bases. I have had their yarn going back like, I don't know, maybe 6 years. So I've been buying them for a long time. This will be the first time that I have like gotten to knit a whole garment out of their yarn, because I mean, it's expensive to knit a whole hand-dyed garment. So I'm really looking forward to it. I am using this Foxy Lady, which is their 70/30 merino silk singles base on my other color, and it's so scrumptious, you guys. It's so incredibly soft. I can't even tell you. I would love to make a tank top out of this. Hell, I'd love to make a tank top out of that in that color. What I got for the collar is Sokapai, and it is a 100% Rambouillet, and I believe it's non-superwash. And I went with that because, for one, it comes in 50-gram skeins, and I don't need all that much of it. And for 2, I felt like it would not stretch as much as the superwashes, and so it would hold those cuffs in better and hold that neckline shape a little better. So that's going to be my Susurrus. Okay, let's take a pause and talk about mohair since I'm wearing it. I am wearing the Rocket Tee by Tanis Lavely, which I finished just a couple of days ago. I have it up on my Instagram and my Ravelry. I really love it. The fit is wonderful, and if you are looking for a more in-depth breakdown of it, you will get that in my next full podcast episode, What I will say is I did use Mohair. Is it a little bit itchy? Yes. Is it as itchy as I feared it would be? No. I used a wool mohair blend instead of silk mohair blend, and I feel like that holds onto it just a little bit more than the silk, and it doesn't shed as much. Blocking helped a significant amount, and I really like the way it looks and how cool and breezy it is. So I think those things tend to override the itchiness for me. But I won't lie, the first time I put this on, I went to put my arms down and I was like, oh. I want to make it again, but I think that I will make it with Siri alpaca and some Superwash BFL that I've got, and have it be like a more winter tee for me. So I love it. If you can hack the mohair, wear it. For the most part, I do try and sub it out though. All right, let's move on to the next thing. This is a yarn that I knit an accessory for my sister out of for a holiday. And I got it in my hands and I was like, this is the softest stuff ever. And it sat in my stash for quite a while before I knitted it. I bought it with the intention to knit her something. And then I knit it and I was like, I would just love to have a sweater out of this. It's not the most economical. It's also not the most expensive. It's a thicker yarn and it's what I would call a mid-price yarn. It's not $30 a skein hand dyed. It is a semi-commercial yarn, meaning that it's coming from like a small producer who gets their yarns and their bases and stuff from a small mill, etc. So when I got tax return season, I got the chance to buy something really nice, and this is what I chose to buy. I'm not going to hold it all up because I have 7 skeins of this. That is true to color. This is the Illimani Amelia yarn, and Illimani is probably my favorite, what I would call semi-commercial dyer. I don't think I've met a yarn from them yet that I haven't liked. I have a cardigan out of one of their alpaca yarns, and I've knit with, you know, small objects with various of their other yarns. This is a blown yarn, and so it's a chainette with fiber blown through it, and in this case it is a 56% mulberry silk, 40% baby alpaca. So I'm going to say it's probably a silk chainette with alpaca blown through it, and then it has just a little tiny bit of merino in it. This knits up at a, they said worsted gauge, but the gauge that it gives is 14 to 16 stitches an inch, which I feel like is also kind of close to chunky. I'm not going to wear a chunky sweater. I'm not very good at that. I don't have the styling for it, but I do have some worsted, like heavy worsted type sweater ideas for this. The original idea that I had for this was a Felix pullover. I think there might even be one on Ravelry that's already knit in this yarn, just in a different colorway, and it looked really nice. And it's a good like shape as far as I can see. The only thing that holds me back on this is the knit girls were talking when Laura was knitting it about how in the larger sizes the raglans tend to get out of shape. So I think that this is a pattern that may not always have been size inclusive and then was made size inclusive, or the cardigan is not size inclusive and then the pullover that came afterward is. But either way, it's one of those that has lace along the raglan detail and you do X number of repeats per size. The larger sizes that you just get more repeats, which just takes it out in this very boxy style, and it makes this length here get really disproportionately long in the upper sizes. And since I'm in one of those really far upper sizes, that would be a problem for me. Now, Laura did some modifications where she put increases in between or off to the sides of the laces and then took off some of the laces so that she got the correct arm depth without having that big bagginess under there. And she's got some really detailed notes on her Ravelry page about how to do that. So if I make the Felix pullover with it, I will definitely be trying to mimic those alterations because the one that she made looked really good on her. I'm fine with a little bit of boxiness and a little bit of armhole depth there, but I'm not somebody who would look good in like Joji Locatelli, I think has the boxy. That's not a style that I think would particularly look good on me. If I'm gonna have that much under my arms, it needs to pull in at my waist. Then I was watching oh no, I had the door open for the dogs and I've let a fly in. Then I was watching, I think it was Mel Make Stuff, and they were talking about their blueberry pie sweater. Watching Mel Make Stuff, and they were talking about their blueberry pie sweater, and that looked really cool. And they did it in a couple of different yarns and got a fuzzy effect, and it looked really cool, the fuzzy effect, and I thought that would be really neat in this Illimani. But I don't know about the gauge, so then I checked the gauge and it looked like it would work spot on. So the blueberry pie sweater is by Johanna Kunin. It is all this cabling and cool stuff, and the cables go down the arms, and I'm not usually one for big cabled sweaters, but like in a much bigger gauge than what I normally knit in, it looks really awesome. So I could see like a chunky cable sweater like that, and in this like deep forest green. What do you guys think? Felix or blueberry pie? Let me know down below, because I'm really torn on that one. I don't think that the blueberry pie would require any modifications like majorly in the way that I think the Felix would. So now we come to a set of yarn that I showed you guys quite some time ago. Pushing a year ago now, because we're going to be approaching my birthday in August, and I got this for my birthday in last year. I was gifted some money and told to go buy some yarn, and so I went and got Forbidden Fibers. It was a trunk show at my local yarn store. It is sparkly, even this one on the end that it doesn't quite show up on. One of these was, I feel like, the LYS color. I think it might have been this one that was the LYS color. She's changed the name on all of these now, so I'm not going to go over what the names are. But these are on a 70-20-10 base that's superwash nylon and stellina. They're almost 500 yards each because they're 113 grams. So this is like 2,000 yards, pretty close. And this is going to be a So Faded that everybody has seen by Andrea Mowry. I think the only thing that has held me back from casting this on so far is that it's sparkle, and I don't usually knit sparkle, but the person who was with me was like, you should get sparkle. Listen to your gut, you guys. I'm sure I'll love it, sparkly and all, but I feel like I am gonna glow, which is a little bit terrifying. I have wanted a green faded sweater for years though, so one of these days I will get on it and get it done. There's no question that that's what I'm gonna do with it. Hoki Locatelli does have a faded sweater that I also like, but everybody just raves and rants and raves about how good the fit on the So Faded is. They make it even unfaded, so as much as I don't like to jump on the bandwagon, I feel like that many knitters are probably not wrong. It's still popular years after it's come out. It's not like everybody's knitting it because it just came out last week. What are you doing, Lugs? My nut. What's up? And now we come to one that has tripped me up for a really long time. I bought this yarn in the Netherlands with a particular pattern in mind that I'm not going to state. It is by a particular designer that I choose not to support for reasons that I choose not to go into. And the problem is that I bought it with that pattern in mind. The yardage worked just fine for that pattern. It was a t-shirt pattern with two-tone detailing. So I have one skein of Lola Bean in Calming. This is on their navy bean base, which is 100% superwash merino. As far as I know, I think that this might be a Stephen and Penelope exclusive base, because I have looked for this base online elsewhere in an attempt to buy a second skein of this for reasons that we'll get into. And I don't see it anywhere but Stephen and Penelope. And I would just grab it at Stephen and Penelope, but the shipping from Stephen and Penelope for a single skein is actually pretty close to the price of a single skein for me. And I have a friend or two who live in the Netherlands, and I have considered just being like, can I PayPal you the 30 euros and can you grab this for me and just mail it to me, because I'm positive that it doesn't cost $30 to just put it in a mailer and send it to me, because they've sent me big boxes for $30 before. But I also don't want to like put them out. If they were already sending me something, then I would. And I've thought about asking them. One of them is Aiden from Undercover Otter, and I've thought about asking them to nab me a skein and send it when they send their prize for the make-along, but it's not in my budget right now, so that doesn't line up either. One of these days, maybe it will, and maybe my problem will be solved. The other two that I have that go with this are Lobby Enemy, and I'm not going to try and pronounce it because we all know that my French is really terrible, but well, maybe I can do it. La Grande Noire. I need to ask one of my French friends if that's how you pronounce that G. These just go together really incredibly well. These sparkles. Tell me you don't love these sparkles. So this was going to be the body with the matching sparkles and then the accent color. So now that I don't want to make that particular pattern, I have really struggled to land firmly on a pattern that hits the same note but doesn't need a second skein of this. So the Lobby Enemy I have plenty of, and that is not any concern, but the Lola Bean is only 400 yards, and there is a pattern that I would really like to make, and I didn't write it down because I don't have enough yardage to make it. I will put it up here though, and I'll drop the designer's name down below. The problem is that I need 560 yards to make the lace yoke. And I don't have 560 yards. I have 400 yards. So I need another skein. preferably on the navy bean base, which I need to get from Amsterdam. I know this is a first problem, you guys. I am aware. That's why it's sitting in my stash. I have plenty of this. So then I have looked at other patterns that I might also make or like in it, and I just haven't completely landed on anything. So what I do have that I like the most for this, which came out recently, is called Lapis, and I will pop a picture here. It is a fitted at the waist, kind of upside down. Is that a rhomboid? No, I think a rhomboid has 5 sides. But it's an upside down flat triangle, basically. With some really cool color interest at the bottom, and that would work totally fine. That is by Yamagara Knits, and that's my top contender for this right now. It doesn't require me to acquire any more yarn. It would use most of this yarn. Life would be peachy. I could make it as big as I want. It's very size inclusive, including all the positive ease. So then my other thought for this yarn is a Vellicore by Andrea Mowry, which is this crisscrossy type top that's like real short sleeve, almost sleeveless, and depending on which colors you use where, you can kind of change the way that it looks. It's not plaid, but you can kind of change the way that the boxes look on it. So no matter what, I would have to use these two as the main color, quote unquote, the one that's used the most. And then this could be used as either contrast color 2 or contrast color 3. And then, you know, I have a ton of different grays, or I have a pretty interesting blue from Western Sky Spinnery that I could put with it. Focus. So I have other single skeins that I would use for socks normally that I could put with this that would look pretty neat in a Vellicore. The problem is I'm not 100% sure if Vellicore is my style. I believe it's all mosaic knitting, which I love mosaic knitting, and I'd much rather do that than stranded. But it looks a little bit stiff to me at the gauge that it's knit at, and I tend to like a little bit more loose and flowy knits. But two, it's kind of fun to go outside your comfort box. On the other hand, these are some very special yarns from my trip to Amsterdam. This was the only hand-dyed yarn that I bought while I was out there. So I'm still leaning towards the Lapis. You can weigh in down below if you have a preference, or if you've made the Vellicore, or if you've made the Lapis. I think very few people have made the Lapis, and that also tends to lean me towards the Lapis. I know a lot of people are all about making the project that 1,000 people have made because they know it's going to work and they know it will fit on them, but I'm a little bit like, I like to explore the things that everybody hasn't made. So that, in my mind, the fact that 25 people have made it, so at least a few people have, but not everybody has, is a check in my favor. Okay, so this I think is the sweater quantity that I have held on to for the longest. I got this clear back when I was still able to work, I think. So a good couple of Christmases or two ago. This is all Undercover Otter, and this is all on the Merino 2.0 base, which is 100% merino. I think it is 400 meters, so 430 some yards per. So this is almost 1,300 yards and 400 and some yards of a contrast color. This is the Blood and Wine colorway, which is from Witcher, which you all know I love, and a good red. It also smells good. And Detroit, which is based off Detroit being human. And this is like newspapery looking. So these have hung out in my stash for the longest time. Again, not because I don't want to knit them, but because this was a sweater quantity that I bought without an idea specifically in mind, but because I knew I wanted a sweater quantity of their yarn. And I have had various ideas over the last couple of years of what I think I might knit with it, but I think I finally truly settled on one design or another. The first design is called the Taipan, and it is by, oh my gosh, you guys, I can't even read my own writing. I'm gonna have to put it down here. Melina, and the last name will be down here. This is one of those patterns that when I look at it, I think that is gonna fit me so good. It is designed with a bust in mind, clearly, but also can be modified to work if you don't have a bust. She talks about in her sizing how she doesn't just go off of your bust sizing. It sounds like she goes off of your over bust sizing and the difference between that and your bust. And so it's like you get a myriad of different sizes. You don't get 9 or 12. You can get like, I don't know, 24 or more sizes that are possible between that, because it's like, do you do bust shaping, do you not, etc. And I like that. And I look at her picture and I think that is somebody who has a large chest like mine, and they are rocking that sweater. It looks really good on them. Perfect amount for one skein and 3 others. So I lean very hard towards that. My other option is by Vera Mackey, who's one of my favorite designers, and this is the Jupiter sweater. This has not been knit by very many people, and so that is kind of a point in its favor. A point not in its favor is that it is a shape that I haven't explored much. I think I've had a couple commercial shirts that were this shape. I don't think I've had them at quite this size, maybe like 5 years ago. What I really like about it though is that I would be able to maximize using every bit of my red contrast color by going back and forth in whatever pattern I chose of like stripe. And because of the way that the arms are kind of bat wing wedge shaped, those stripes would come to a V at my arm. And that seems like it could be a really cool design theme. So I haven't had a lot of time to marinate on that one because I just found it recently, whereas I've had a long time to marinate on the Taipan. I even have it in my queue to make, like it was the one I had decided to make that was gonna be the sweater. So maybe I'll do the Jupiter. Most likely I'll do the Taipan. One thing in the favor of the Jupiter is it's a designer that I know and I love, and I've never been disappointed with the patterns from Vera before. So we shall see. What I can say is this yarn is so squishy and so soft. This is some of the softest yarn that I have. It's superwash merino, but it's like super, super fine merino. And it's a shame that I have not made it into something yet. Okay, the next thing that I want to make is some kind of scrappy striped DK weight sweater, because I found a couple of full skeins or nearly full skeins of DK deep stash from like 6 years ago in the back of my shelf the other day, and I thought, what can I make with these? You know, I don't work with DK very often. I only have one DK sweater and it was a gift. And then I realized that I really love Andrea Mowry's Stripes sweater. Now, the problem is that it is a sport weight. But it uses all sorts of yarns. I think that there is some Farmer Daughter Cereal Alpaca in there, or Mighty Mo. There is all kinds of things, regular DK or regular sport weights, etc. in there. And so you get fuzzy stripes and not fuzzy stripes, etc. But I just love like the color theory that's going on in it, and I like the round yoke of it. And so I wanted a round yoke striped sweater. Maybe, you know, I was thinking thicker stripes, but now that I have this one and it's thinner stripes, I don't know, maybe it doesn't have to be that thick. The idea was based off of these colors that I found in my stash. There is some MJ yarns here and here. This is some Plucky Knitter I was gifted, and this is some leftover Farmer's Daughter Craggy Tweed from like 6 years ago from a project that I had. I have other yarns that match these in smaller quantities, and I'm sure that I could put them all together into some kind of a scrappy thing. So I've been going through people's suggestions and Ravelry and looking for the perfect sweater shape. It's not that hard to stripe something. So it could be a plain sweater or it could be a striped sweater. It doesn't matter because I can add stripes afterwards. I got a couple of suggestions for one of Hokey Locatelli's and some others. And nothing was just really pouncing at me for that round neck shape that I wanted. But I did think, you know, I could take the actual striped sweater from Andrea Mowry, I could do gauge swatch, and I could just knit a few sizes down and do it that way, because sport's pretty close to DK. It depends on what my DK gauge is. It might come out a little bit stiffer. Then I looked at like not striped sweaters and I found two really solid contenders. One is the Autumn Gold, which is by, surprise, Vera Valimaki. And I really like this. I think that this would make a really good seemingly round yoke sweater. It actually has some raglan on the side, but it's a modified, it's not like just straight raglan, it's much less. So it would give you almost a boat neck stripe kind of look, and I like that. And then I also found the Calliope by Espace Tricot. This is the 1 DK weight true round neck sweater that I found, and I will pop it in here. It's a solid color, and I think it's intended to be knit with fingering and a mohair or an alpaca, but it's got some long, deep ribbing, and it has very long cuffs, which I probably would shorten up, but I do really like that long, deep neck ribbing, and I think that would look really cool going through some stripes. So I'm a little on the toss-up between the Autumn Gold by Vera Valimaki and the Calliope by Espace Tricot. But one of those two is going to become a DK striped sweater for me at some point in the near future. Last but not least, we get into my other DK sweater, basically, that I am collecting yarn for. So I don't have the money to go out and just buy yarn for a DK sweater. For one, it's crazy expensive. For two, it's a crazy amount of yarn for me for a DK sweater. You're looking at like 8 skeins, probably. I think I need 5 skeins for this still. So yeah, 8 skeins. So I want to make the For Fox's Sake by Maxim Cyr. And I have Prue yarns in Oil Slick, which is going to be the background of the motif. I have Mad Tosh on a one-of-a-kind orange with some brown speckles for the fox itself. And then I haven't decided yet. I bought Hedgehog Fibers Tweedy, the original base, with the intention of that being the little fox's white face and the lines above and below the motif, but I'm not entirely positive that I'll use that yet. I think it does match good and it goes good, but it would also be the only non-superwash in the bunch. And that's fine. You can mix as long, I mean, it's not like I throw my superwash sweaters in the washer anyway, but I do have another thought, which is that I have some leftover sport weight Farmer's Daughter in a very pale peach, and I could pair that with some white alpaca, or I even have white mohair, and I think in that small of an amount it wouldn't bother me. It would really lighten it up and just be this light orange, and I think that might look really cool as like the fur on the fox's face and then the above and below outline of the color work. What I haven't decided on yet, and also haven't purchased yet because it's expensive, is the other 5 skeins that I need to make this sweater. So I need 5 skeins for the body, and I'm really completely undecided on the color. I am doing such a dark background for the color work with a bright fox on it that I would kind of like to have some really poppy background color, like a bright teal or a bright purple or a bright green, but I'm unsure what color I want it to be yet. It could be like a bright light blue, or I don't know, and that's the problem. So before I can finish buying yarn for that project, I need to do 2 things. I need to really make sure that I know what color I want, so that when I am gifted money for yarn, I can go make that purchase. Because when I'm gifted money for yarn, that money always tends to go towards things that I'm certain that I want. Like, I'm certain that I want a rust orange sweater, so I'm going to get that. And if I'm not certain that I want a certain color to go behind there, that moves that purchase down the list, which is fine. I have lots and lots and lots of garments to knit in the meantime. I'm not worried about it at all, but it's something that I need to keep track of. So currently I am about to cast on the needles by Jessie May a ripple bralette, and I'm going to use some chocolate milk colored Kobasi that I have. Originally the Kobasi was going to go with some Ella Rae Marmal yarn I had to make a tank top, but I could not find a satisfactory pattern and I did not feel up to designing my own. So I scratched that and decided I would give a knitted bralette a try, and I'm going to either hold on to this to make something else out of or make a shawl out of these. A few other yarns that I have in stash that are basically set aside towards sweaters but don't make up a full sweaters quantity yet are these 3 from JC Rennie. Are 3 different shades of a purple. I have New Amethyst, Confetti, and Blueberry, I think. Yeah, Blueberry. And I would like to, at some point, pick up a JC Rennie cone in either Ouige Pearl or Tusk to go with these to make a sweater that has like color block stripes or something like that. Okay, and then the last thing that I have that I would like to make into a garment, but am lacking the rest of the yarn for at the moment, is this set of minis from my Chromatic Yarns calendar last year. I would like to stripe these as a rocket tee and get a couple of skeins of Suri alpaca in a very pale or medium gray shade from maybe Farmer's Daughter Fiber, and have that be more of a winter fall rocket tee. So that's something that's on my radar for right now. So that's what I've got coming up, what's hiding in my stash that I'd like to knit. Obviously, I've got more yarn than that. I have a lot of sock yarn hanging out in here. I have a lot of scrap yarn, and I have, you know, odds and ends here and there. Things that aren't enough to make a garment, but that I use for other smaller projects, or adding into a garment here or there if I need to have a pop of color or stripes or make shawls or things like that. Those are the main things that I have coming up for garments though, and what I'm thinking, and a few of the things that I am waffling on. If you have an opinion on any of those, drop it down below and let me know. I'd also really love to hear, like, what is it that you are thinking about knitting that's coming up in your queue as far as summer knits or fall knits or winter knits for next year? And do you knit winter knits during the summer, or do you only knit those in the season that they're in? I'm finding that right now I'm really hung up on summer knits because we don't really have the air conditioner on, but as soon as that air conditioner gets on, I won't really care what I knit on. If I knit on a winter knit, it'll be fine because it'll be temperature controlled in here. We would not be able to survive without air conditioner, so it's somewhat of a moot point. It's not an extravagant for us. It's constantly over 100 here in the summer. It's very much a need. That's all I've got for this kind of off-the-wall episode. I hope that you come back next week for my regularly scheduled episode, which will go over the rocket tee and the socks that I'm knitting and everything else. It'll have information on the inclusion mal and the prizes that we're getting in for that and the things that people have been knitting for it. I'm super excited about it. It's been a ton of fun. In the meantime, I hope you have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're at. And I really hope that you're able to stay safe in all the wackiness that is going on in the world out there. I will see you later.